Orientation, this is Anchorage Community Development Authority. He's going to speak to us for a while. Let's go around and declare ourselves for the record.
Felix Rivera.
Suzanne France.
Dyson.
Andrew Hopper.
Robert Jones.
Gene Gates. Steve Peterson.
Dick Train. We'll turn this over to you, Andrew.
All right, I'll make this really quick. ACDA, we have two parts of our shop. ACDA, which is the development side. Easy Park, which manages 5,800 public parking spaces downtown. We own 3 of the garages downtown, 5th Avenue, 6th Avenue, 7th Avenue. We manage the JCPenney garage. We do not own that. So we own 3 garages downtown. We own a number of surface lots, and we control a couple thousand on-street parking spaces. That's the Easy Park side. The development side, our assets are mainly concentrated downtown. We own the transit center. Just a little bit of background, the transit center is actually a private building. It's not owned by the city, but we are responsible for managing the building and taking care of the safety and security. We own a number of city lots downtown. We own 3 lots at the corner of 8th and K. We own some property in Mountain View. We own the North Point Bluff subdivision in Government Hill, which should be built out by the end of the year. And we also were instrumental in redeveloping the Square Mall, the Glen Square Mall in Mountain View. So right now, this is what my organization looks like. We're authorized for 48 FTEs. We have 44. We are currently under a hiring freeze. 42 of those 44 FTEs are in the parking division. It's very labor intensive. You're talking about people on the streets. Our dispatch center is now open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So we've adopted kind of a self-imposed hiring freeze. 42 of those 44 are parking. The other 2, myself and another person in the office, is to really work on development. For the parking, one thing we're known for is parking tickets, but I will tell you that is not our goal. I know we get a bad rap, but just to give you a little bit of information, since 2014, we have written 30% fewer parking tickets. And that's because we've made investments in the meters, investments in technology, which make it easier to pay. My marching orders, and it's our fundamental belief as an organization, we don't like writing parking tickets. We write parking tickets because we are charged with enforcing the law. If the government sets the law, we enforce it. I'm more concerned with the men and women who work on the street for me enforcing loading zones, handicap zones, and no parking zones to keep business moving, especially in the alleyways. They write tickets when the meters expire. But as I said, we're really focusing on investing in technology because it's my perspective that I write a parking ticket, I not only have an angry customer, but I have work that I've just given my staff to do. So writing parking tickets is not what we like to do, and we've been writing fewer of them, which makes us happy. Since 2011, we've invested almost $8 million in the garage improvements. Most of these garages are 30 years old. The 7th Avenue garage is the oldest, was built, I believe, in '82. So our garages range anywhere from 32 to 34 years of age. We're getting back in and investing in redeveloping those and repairing those. As you can imagine, parking doesn't necessarily pay for itself, and the garage structure is being concrete with the climate, it's a challenge. Our organization does not rely on any taxpayer dollars. We are self-sustaining. We pay for ourselves through our development revenues and our parking revenues. We pay the city, both MISA, and we pay a 1.5% tax on gross revenue, not net. In 2016, we paid about $500,000 to the city and MISA, and of course that comes in under the tax. So I always like to say that when you come downtown and plug a meter, about 4 or 5 cents of that actually goes back to property tax building because it comes back to the city under the thing. So a lot of folks don't realize that you're actually, when you feed the meter, that money comes back to you. We also pay property taxes. We also pay an equivalent of property taxes on the depreciated value of our garages. By and large, you have in front of you, I won't go through it, you have in front of our strategic plan. This was developed about a year ago in concert with our board. Since this mayor has taken over, I am appointed by the mayor, my board's appointed by the mayor. Since Mayor Berkowitz took over and brought me on board, he's had really one direction, and that's go out and make things happen. And that's really what we've done the last year and a half. What we've been focused on as an organization is investing in technology, investing in infrastructure downtown. We have expanded our dispatch center to 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. You'll see on a number of our garages we have a centralized safety and security number. If you're downtown, you feel unsafe, or you see something, you can call that number. We'll have an immediate response. And what that does is that provides a little bit of triage before APD gets there, or maybe APD doesn't even have to get there. So what we do is either our guys, or in most cases the ADP ambassadors, the downtown partnership ambassadors, show up, assess the situation. It requires police. But this way we stop from burdening the police with calls that we might be able to move along. Downtown is a fascinating place. Everything you've heard about is true, the good, bad, and ugly. But it is an amazing place with a lot of potential, and I think we've really done a good job the last 2 years. The merchants have really noticed a difference with the chief police officers on the beat downtown. You can really feel a different vibe downtown. And of course, every downtown goes through fits and spurts, but I think we're doing very well, and we're finally kind of collaborating. Private security forces, for instance, at the Sheraton are communicating with us, and we're communicating with ADP. So we really, over the last 2 years, have developed kind of a web of communication. So there is more talking going on and more collaboration downtown with regards to safety and security. Really, the vision for the organization for development is similar to parking. I've tried to instill in our staff over the last 2 years is you cannot do things the way we've always done things. We can no longer look at these garages as 6 floors of concrete and paint. We have to make these buildings come alive. We have to take an innovative approach to our facilities. Most of our garages are in the heart of downtown. They occupy prime real estate. They need to be destinations. We have done over the last year, we've done the first public polling on parking downtown. And the results would surprise you. As a matter of fact, the people who come downtown the most are the people who love us the most. People who never come downtown have a very poor opinion of us. It's fascinating. But we understand who our target demographics are. We're working with ADP to try and communicate marketing data, cross promotions to get more people down on the streets. With regards to the development side, again, we're looking at our facilities as far as incorporating the housing component. Many of you know the Transit Center, which is a 33-year-old building, has been a huge health and public safety hazard for this city for a very long time. A lot of it has to do with the building itself. It's just really unmanageable. When the building was built in the mid-'80s, it was designed at a different time and at a different philosophy of public meeting space. Today, the building basically violates every premise of public space. 4 lines of sight, hidden bathrooms, a lot of nooks and crannies. Those are things we try and develop around. So currently, we had originally about a year and a half ago, we had started the process of moving tenants out. The plan is now, we're in final talks with the developer. The plan is 55 units of housing on the front of the transit center and about a floor of the bottom floor retail, and from 2 to 7 there's going to be actual housing on the face of the garage. We think the housing numbers work. We're struggling with how to make the retail work, but we're optimistic. We'll know more in the next month. But the idea is to really take a look at these facilities and take a look at the big picture. So when you look at the transit center now, and we look at our business model, the two poor performing garages in my portfolio are 6th and 7th Avenue. Some of that has to do with loss of employment at ConocoPhillips and some of the downtown businesses, and others have to do with the fact that the transit center is not a savory place. And a lot of my customers simply don't want to park in the 6th Avenue garage. And no matter how many security cameras I have up or how many times I double my security staff, you're always going to have problems. And the long-term solution is to get more people in that garage and more people on that city block. And so with housing, not only will you increase the density and provide kind of a greater carrot for somebody who's looking at retail on the bottom floor, because suddenly you're talking about 55 units of housing above you, but you're talking about possibly a restaurant or retail that's going to encourage additional traffic in the garage along with the renters there. So we see this as an opportunity to address housing downtown, which has been a long time goal of the city, is to increase density downtown, as well as generate additional revenues, which of course a percentage of that comes back to the city. So the way I look at it is when I grow up my business, I help taxpayers. We are, as I said, we are starting to look at our facilities in a different way. As a matter of fact, some of you might know we created a rooftop park on the top of our 5th Avenue garage. That actually came about a year and a half ago. I was standing in the mayor's office with the mayor looking out over the top deck of the empty 6th Avenue garage, and he said, you know, we should really use that space. And it was a brilliant idea. So we went back and we started putting pen to paper and figuring out how it would work. We had originally planned for the rooftop park to be on the top of the 6th Avenue garage, but then shortly thereafter, we started the redevelopment process, and we worried about putting equipment up there and then having to take it down, so we moved it to 5th Avenue. This summer, last summer, we rolled it out. We did a slow roll to make sure we could secure the footprint, and we had enough security coverage to maintain the facility. It went very well last year with very little advertising. We get about 30,000 people a month through the 5th Avenue garage. So we didn't put any signage. There was no internal advertising. This summer, we are adding another attraction. We're adding a year-round skate rink up top. It's not an ice rink, it is a skate rink. So that will, again, draw people. In the marketing idea, the business idea is that if I have 30,000 people a month that come through the 5th Avenue garage, if they stay another hour and a half and 2 hours to skate or play ping pong or play basketball or sit at a picnic table with their family, that's an hour and a half of parking time. And that's an hour and a half of parking revenue that, again, comes back to the city. And it's good for downtown because it gets people downtown. So that's really our focus, both in parking and development, is to take a look at our assets in a different way and recognize that the more people that come downtown, the better it is for my business, the better it is for downtown because we invest more in downtown, and the better it is for taxpayers because we're contributing more to the city. That's really all I have.
Mr. Dyson, sir.
Andrew and I have a lot of history of work together. He's very capable, probably scary, bright, marginally irritating. And I see it in your last year measuring success. Listening to you, I think it's a little bit outside your purview, but the economic development piece, I see on television ads nationwide that New York is open for business, and apparently they're giving significant tax relief, probably making vacant properties available, and all kinds of things. I'm not greatly optimistic about our area, but is there anyone, chamber, you guys, the mayor's office, really trying to look creatively at how we might be able to use vacant real estate and attract some kinds of business?
Excuse me. To answer your question, yes. There's legislation filed in Juneau 8th House Bill 156. It's changing. Okay.
Military thing?
To allow cities more opportunity. One of the things we learned early on, Chris and I, after just a couple of weeks on the job, we were part of that fam trip to Oklahoma City and Wichita. And one of the things that we saw was, obviously the housing and the type of execution is different because we're a winter city, but what we really focused on was the seamless collaboration between the bankers, the developers, the city planners. I mean, you had these people all sitting in a room.
Skip to the chase.
Right.
What's going on?
So what we're trying to do is change state law to get the city in a position where we can start to offer more tax incentives. But in the meantime, what Chris and his team done is fabulous, is they've taken a piece of city property and they've gone out to the public market and said, here, what can you do for us? And then crafted that around there. We're looking at doing the same two things. And I think what's happening now in the marketplace, because of the change of the economy, you're getting companies whose business model had been set on something else and now focusing towards housing. For instance, there's the company that does the prefab stuff on the slope is now looking at housing.
Yeah.
So I think the city, again, the city with the master land use plan, giving the developers some definition and some ideas as far as where the investment areas are.
My question is, somebody working on it, your answer is yes.
Yes.
And pretty capable people.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
And we will always ask, what can we do to help? Or what can we do to eliminate barriers? And I'm sure I speak for my colleagues, anything.
Right.
So, separate, if I may, different question. And the visitors people and some citizens don't like being hassled by panhandlers and folks around. And I assume, Mr. Constant, that's an issue for downtown people, and so on.
That's an issue for every part of Anchorage, sir.
Sorry?
That's an issue for every part of Anchorage.
Yeah, so what have we done? What should we do, or what could we do, if anything?
Over the last year, AERC, in conjunction with Anchorage Downtown Partnership and other organizations, created the Spare Change program, where you'll see signage and storefront windows encouraging not to give to panhandlers. That has had a limited effect. I think you just have to do what they do in every city, is tell them no. I think it's almost impossible without some kind of enforcement mechanism, because
no bigger cheese laws.
Yeah, and I mean, I see it right outside my window, so it's something difficult to control, but I think we're doing what we can with the signage and trying to educate merchants, to educate their customers as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Peterson, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Andrew, I've been to several of your meetings over the year or so, and I remember we talked about trying to incentivize people to park in the parking garage so you could have less parking on the surface lots and maybe possibly redevelop those sometime in the future. Do you want to discuss that?
Well, our belief is that this is going to be like dominoes. The 7th and I property that the city just let, we have property at 8th and K we're talking about, the transit center. So, for instance, you look at the transit center, if we clean that up, redevelop that, the empty parcel across the street, which is now a surface parking lot owned by Mark Pfeffer, that's his Augustine project. If we clean up the transit center, put housing, put more people on the street, then across the street, maybe Pfeffer sees the environment as a little bit more ripe and, starts to invest. The challenge is nobody's going to invest when your tenant's going to look across the street at a place that gets more ambulances and police cars than buses. But it's something we're working towards. And also, as we've talked about, you've heard in meetings, getting additional housing downtown brings merchants. I mean, we had a conversation with Walgreens about a year and a half ago, and they said very clearly, we love downtown, but if you don't have the people on the streets, you have to get yourself some housing. And so that's really what we're focused on.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Krantz, Mr. Rivera, Mr. Hunt,
Yeah, I thank you, Mr. Chair. Just had a couple of questions. So, I know this is always an ever-evolving subject, but is the plan? What's the updated plan for the transit center? Where is that going to be located during renovations?
That has yet to be determined. So at the end of the day, we have a conference call planned with the developer next week, and then a special development committee meeting on the 15th. So by the end of the month, we hope that this will start to at least get us past the first gate. At the end of the day, the vision for the transit center, the people who will portion is they are going to get the space they can afford. Based on what their current rent is, they're going to get the space that they can afford, which to me is going to come out to about 2,000 square feet of space. Probably, Rule has said that they'll probably move all of their people out, have automatic ticketing machines, we'll have a secure waiting area, there won't be the open space. That's the plan. As far as moving them temporarily, we haven't even gotten to that decision point.
And then I have one more question, Mr. Chair. Is there an update on sort of the primary tenant for the new transit center?
No, because we believe that if we get the housing, if we're trying to, we've taken one run at it, we're taking another run at it, saying, okay, if the developer can focus on housing and just make sure the economics of the housing works, let ACDA in my board figure out how we can make the first retail. Because I'm convinced that if you get the 55 units of housing, suddenly that conversation with Walgreens takes a completely different tone. So we've always been approaching this as just retail, right? That doesn't work. With housing, it does work. And so right now, to answer your question, no.
Thank you.
Anything else from assembly members? If not, thank you very much. Barbara, who's the next one?
Equal Rights Commission.
Okay, is the food back here, Barbara? Yes, I think it should take us
So would you like to take a break in just a month?
Why don't we take a break
Okay.
and get lunch?
It's supposed to go till 45, but yeah. But no.
We'll start with 5 minutes, so just lunch back.
Yeah, I asked Barb, there is no work session. We just did it. Yeah.
There's something to eat.
There you go. I did it. You're welcome. Thank you. You're welcome. Ooh, I like that
We're
stuff.
going to be collecting a lot of things.
Kids are excited.
Thank you.
I just got that in the mail.
Yep.
You have the email and distribution.
Yeah, I'll grab that.
Yeah, we have a problem with that.
You want me just to put it in a little graph for you to use that?
Thank you.
Do you want me to send it out?
Hey, Mr. Best. I see you asking about panhandlers. It's always, sorry, panhandlers.
Oh, yes.
It's always a topic, perpetual topic. I worked on ordinance for panhandling, it wasn't panhandling. We had a court case in Supreme Court, I think it was 2009, 2010. Yeah, so I know we've been a bit about the subject, if you ever want to talk about what we talked
And it's an unsolvable one, just like homeless.
What was affected is there was some pressure on us to more layers and to have to change for the better.
So last week, I gave you this,
Amazing how wide-ranging.
and if I had just come to you with the general question, not related to a specific person,
So different.
I think you could have been able to do research on this code to help me. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I'll be back by then.
It is.
More situation.
Yeah, in my
It's German.
Yes.
Rogers Parker.
Ready in your 5 minutes.
Very different issues.
Yeah.
It's not part of it. It's all,
My
it's all
question
different.
is that within your purview to help me with legal questions?
Sit on the seat on the end, so if you want to sit here. or
Yeah,
wherever you
it
want.
is, I think.
You bet. I'll be
I
back.
have to think how that will be framed, but sure, and
Good.
yeah, I think so. So, we can talk more about it if you want.
Yes, sir.
We're going to start in just a second.
Just let me put your signature right here. Oh, that's fine. I hardly believe that.
Oh yeah, that's true.
It's all of a sudden gone away. So it's a little less. It's a big party in my house. Sure it would.
I was joking with someone at other community councils next week. They should all have margarita bars. Yeah, like that was getting elephants.
you from originally?
I can take it.
Just short of this, of course, we're going to deal with the rights commission. So we're going to run the table down for ourselves for the tape.
Christopher Constant.
Sorry, Felix.
Felix Rivera.
Suzanne France.
Dante Powell.
Pam Basler, the Equal Rights Commission.
Andrew Sumba with Equal Rights Commission.
Stephanie Horvath with Equal Rights Commission.
Dean Peterson. Dean Peterson.
Big training. So what's your time over the Rights Commission?
All right, good morning, Assembly members, and welcome to the new members of the Assembly. I'm the Executive Director of the Equal Rights Commission, and you're looking at 2/3 of our staff here today. We have 6 people in our office, and these 3 are investigators in our office, and we have 1 other investigator who's currently on vacation, and a doctor. We're located on the first floor here with a lot of the Assembly offices over behind the bank. If you ever need to stop by and ask questions, or if you want any more copies of our brochures. So the first one I gave you is our general brochure, which describes what our services are. If you open it up and look on the left, the first page, you can see there's about 14 different protected classes that the city has currently on the books that we enforce discrimination laws on behalf of. 2 of them were added in 2015. Those are sexual orientation and gender identity. And we probably spend 90 to 90% of our time focusing on employment cases. Most of them are employment issues that come before us. And out of the 111 cases we filed last year, 11 of them were in the other areas. We had probably 4 or 5 housing, several public accommodations, a couple cases against the municipality for some of its practices, a couple of school district cases, and every once in a while we get a case against a bank about lending practices. So our jurisdiction is within the municipality, but there are also quite a few businesses that have a nexus to Anchorage that operate in other parts of the state, and we have corporate headquarters here. We will take cases against those corporations too. We do take a number of cases against regional native corporations and other entities of that nature. We allow not just attorneys but also HR professionals to represent respondents in their cases, and some of the representatives are from all over the nation, not just from here in Alaska. So we're dealing with attorneys and with HR personnel from all over the country in our cases, and some of the respondents are national retailers that have offices here in Alaska. Some of them are local mom and pop businesses here in town. And we also cover nonprofit organizations, which nobody else does, so we do a lot of cases against nonprofits. One of our other missions is to educate the public, and Dante is our outreach and education coordinator, and we do conduct forums and public education, information campaigns. We do those usually in cooperation with our strategic partners. Most recently, we've worked with the mayor's office and the police department on a public education campaign involving how to report hate crimes and bias incidences. And you've got the sheet that we developed for police officers to use to hand out to people. But we've also got a PSA video that Mr. Powell was very instrumental in creating, and we'd like to show it to you in about 3 minutes.
It says no inputs detected. Oh, there it is.
Percent are targeted
created by Mr. Powell here, and he used Beacon Media to assist him. It is a PSA. It is available for you. If you know of any other organizations that might want to use it for their education purposes, it's available for use. So you can talk to Dante about how to use it and get the type of copy you need, right, to use. Or you can just, at the bottom of the sheet we gave you, you can go and just look at it yourself and use it if you can use it that way. What this looks like in practice is that if the violent crime is involved, the police will respond and do their police thing. The other way we've seen this happen, there was a person who came to the forum where the video was released, and she is a citizen who uses a headscarf, and she was shopping at a local store, and someone was harassing her about it and calling her names, and it made her really afraid.
I'm sorry, they were harassing her about what?
What her headscarf.
Wearing a headscarf, Fred.
They assumed she was of a certain religion, and they were harassing her. And it made her really afraid because she was outside, in the process of going to her car. And the police did come, and what they did for her, she didn't want to, quote, prosecute anybody. She wasn't sure who it was because they did what they did, and then they left the area. But what the police were able to offer to do to her to help her feel safe was to follow her while she drove home to make sure she got home okay. And I think that that is a really good chance to offer by the police to make everybody in our community feel safe. So that's one way where maybe the person doesn't think it's an emergency, but they're scared, and our government, our police department can come and they can provide help and not only listen to the person and give them choices about what they want to do, but help make them feel safe. So that is something we've collaborated with a couple other departments on, and part of the reason we're interested in those pieces is our office is the office that has the privilege, I guess, I would put it that way, of providing staff support to the Community Police Relations Task Force, which is a civilian oversight type group with pretty limited powers, but they do hear cases of individuals who are concerned about incidences that involve police or police issues, so we do tend to start to get involved in those issues. We've also been asked in the past to provide mediation or community forums for people that are upset about some things that might have gone on. And the case that I'm thinking about is an incident that happened where an individual who had a stick in his hands was shot and killed by the police, and use of force incident that was very controversial. And we assisted with that and also investigated use of force issues with the police department, released a report for the community to be involved in. So those are some of the other roles that we have in the city, and we have a lot of partners that we work with, because a lot of groups and especially a lot of nonprofits are interested in a lot of all of these issues. The other document that I gave to you was a service animal brochure, and service animals continue to be a hot topic.
It's an issue.
Not only with businesses, but also with people that provide public services. You're talking about transportation issues. We just had someone come in today and ask for a bunch of these because they went to a local grocery store and were told by an employee that their animal couldn't be in the grocery store. And he said, yes, it can, it's a service animal. And they came without a bunch of brochures because they're going to go give them to management and ask management to train all of its employees to know that service animals are allowed in grocery stores. So it's a continuing problem for people who use service animals, whether they're trying to use a cab, going to certain stores. And I realize that the issue's been complicated by people who maybe are not 100% honest about whether the animal's actually a service animal or not. But that is an issue that we get a lot of cases on currently. The other thing I provided to you is our recent annual report, which just came out. And on page 13 and 14 are our stats for the year. We signed up 111 new complaints, and we closed 107. With the economy, in the state that it is, you can see that 100 of them were employment cases. We are seeing a lot of people, and especially, unfortunately, people with disabilities that are being terminated, where maybe in the past, maybe the employer might have chosen to work with them and find a reasonable accommodation for their disability. So we're seeing a lot of those cases. We're having a pretty high volume of inquiries. We've signed up 41 cases so far this year, and if that continues, we're on track to file over 120 cases. It does make it difficult for us to close the cases as timely as we would like when we have a large volume of cases, but we do our best. So is there any questions anyone has, especially of our investigators? Andrew's been an investigator for about 4 years with us. Stephanie's been with us 3 years?
4 years as an investigator.
4 years too as an investigator, and Dante's been with us about a year and a half. So if you have any questions for our investigators or for office, feel free.
Mr. France?
I'm just curious as to the background and training of the investigators on your team.
Start, Andrew?
Sure. I started working with the Legal Aid Society of Minneapolis in 2008, working in housing discrimination cases during law school. I graduated from William Mitchell College of Law in 2010. I worked for the State Commission for Human Rights as an investigator for approximately 2.5 years before working here. Now I've been working here for about 4 years. And I also I worked for a few prosecutors' offices and a few judges as well prior to working here.
I served with the AmeriCorps after finishing my undergraduate studies, and then went to graduate school and received a master's in international relations. And I worked briefly at a consulting company in Portland before moving to Alaska with my husband. Worked with the Equal Rights Commission for 4 years.
I have received a bachelor's degree in justice and currently pursuing a master's degree in project management. I also have going through on-the-job investigator degree.
So Dante's been working with our more experienced investigators pretty much since last October, so for about 6 or 7 months, and he's being trained and been given a small caseload of the, I guess I call them the easier cases, to get trained on to learn how to be an investigator. The one who's not here has been an investigator with us for about 12 years, and I'm a lawyer. I'm also the staff attorney for our office, which is a little problematic sometimes when I'm trying to negotiate to settle cases, and then sometimes I have to go be the staff attorney and enforce against people. But I do my best. I've been an Anchorage resident for over 50 years. I went outside to go to school after graduating from Diamond and graduate from Washington State, went to law school at Lewis and Clark in Portland. I've been a state prosecutor, criminal prosecutor. I worked in insurance defense law for a little while. I was a soccer mom for a while. I worked as a financial manager for quite a few years in our family business. So I guess I have a special heart for the small businesses in town, who I personally feel these HR type issues and discrimination issues aren't really on a lot of their radar until they have a problem. So one of the things we do is coach, train, and help some of the smaller businesses with those issues because they don't always have the money to go hire a law firm to do all that work for them. So I enjoy doing that, and I guess I have a heart for the small businesses. And I've been in this position for about 5.5 years.
Pete and then Fred. Pete?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was looking on page 13, and I see there was one complaint filed against practices of the municipality of Anchorage. Do you recall what the complaint was?
All the cases are confidential in our office unless they go to a public hearing, so I'm not able to talk about the details of any cases. In general, what I would tell you is that your departments that have the most visibility with the public, and those are going to be your police department, your fire department, your transportation department, are always going to be the departments that we see. And additionally, if you have anything involving children, if you get some of their parents upset with you, you might see a case involving children's access to programming or any of those type of issues. In my opinion, as far as the departments of the municipality are concerned, it's a United versus Alaska Airlines issue. If you have a department that's been trained to provide exceptional customer service, like Alaska Airlines employees, we don't see them that much. If you have a department where the employees either haven't been empowered or haven't been trained on how to provide exceptional customer service, in my mind, in this context, that means knowing how to provide accommodations to people who have disabilities or special requests, we're going to see more cases from those departments.
Thank you. Fred, sir.
Yeah, I have big three interlocking questions. You give me really simple answers. I think I served on the commission a couple decades ago. Helpful. Would you be, was it within your purview if some citizen came and said, organization X, it has, doesn't have any minority representation, or only has, and they're out of compliance, would that be within your purview?
What we have found here in Alaska is that most employers do not have enough employees
Yes.
to run any of the analytics that you would need to run
Yes.
to be able to prove a disparate impact case.
But on the big ones?
So that's a more difficult area for us to get involved in. All we can do is on the cases one by one individually. If that person feels they haven't been hired or they haven't been promoted because they are a minority and there are not very many of them in that group anyway, we can take that case, but we in general don't pursue big disparate impact cases because
Okay.
we don't have the
Right.
numbers.
So your answer is no, except on hiring?
Hiring or promotion, individual cases.
Yes. All right. I want to say to ask this question advisedly. Please don't overreact. I'm not being picky or smart aleck. I protested vociferously when my now colleagues passed the gender identification thing. And as I predicted, sadly, that it's happening in sports. You know, boys are joining girls' teams and having a state track championship with my grandson. And I'm hearing nationally that some folks are coming and saying, parent men are coming and saying, I'm a woman, I want preference on this bidding contract, or for minority and women-owned organizations. And that's, the old proverb, the hard cases make for bad law, so that one's happening. Now, I always thought that men created most of the evil in the world. My wife's daughters have disabused me of that, and so on. But, I've been a jock all my life, and I'm appalled by what's called locker room stories and so on. My daughters tell me I've heard nothing until you get in a women's locker room sometimes. So imagine a case where that's happening in a locker room, and all the rival jokes are going on. And one of the persons there says, I'm a man. And I take that as very offensive and hate talk. And I'm going to report it to the EOC as a hate crime or discrimination. Those are the tough cases. But I believe that my former colleagues here have opened Pandora's box to all kinds of legal issues like that. Are you hearing anything nationally, and you have an opinion about how those might be handled?
The education cases are under Title IX, which we don't enforce.
Yep.
So that's the U.S. Department of Education, what they choose to
Yep.
do or not to do. We do have a contract with the EEOC, which is a federal agency, and we co-file with them. Those are all employment cases. And I think the advantage of employment cases is we're a much more controlled setting. Most employers have control over their environment where they have their workers work. So personally in our office, we don't see Title IX cases involving
Right.
those issues. As far as
Who
locker
we are,
room,
Title IX?
U.S. Department of Education.
Okay, I got it. Go ahead.
As far as locker room issues, we might see that with a local health club maybe. But my personal feeling is that if people are reasonable and recognize that some people prefer more what's the right word?
I don't-
Modesty than others. I think people can share public spaces and
I don't.
things will go fine.
I'm not
It's
asking your
not up-
personal opinion.
It's not
How
up
it
to
will be
me.
dealt with legally.
Yeah, it's not up to me to decide. It's up to the assembly to decide what our laws are going to be in our office just to enforce as a. In that particular area, there's not a lot of case law yet. There's nothing from the Ninth Circuit, so we don't have a precedent to follow legally.
Yep, so if it was reported as discrimination and qualifying for a contract or a loan under minority set aside, would that be within your purview?
OEO handles all of the DBE issues here for the city. That's
Okay.
Heather
Yep.
McAlpine.
Yeah, all right, thank you. And I didn't mean to make it a difficult question, but I foresee it coming down the pike.
People have different opinions, and that's okay. It's all right.
You thought my question was offensive. I didn't mean
No,
it to be.
It's not. I'm just saying
Okay.
people have different opinions, and that's okay, so it's not offensive.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
You're welcome.
Mike Chadwick should be our next one, Barbara. Now, Mike is the patrol auditor. He works for both the administration and the assembly. We both concurred on his employment, his hiring. So, Mike, you want to tell us your history, background for our members that don't know you?
Sure.
I think, Fred, you remember Pete Ranscombe? Fred, you remember Pete Ranscombe?
Yep.
Okay, Pete had this job before
I remember.
Mike did.
What's up? Okay. Go ahead and start.
Go ahead.
All right. A little background on myself. I'm Mike Chadwick. I'm the Director of Internal Audit. As the chair stated, I replaced Pete Raskins, who has worked here for many years. Forever. My background a little bit. I went to school at Brigham Young University. I got a master's degree in public administration. Started out with the Auditor General's office in the state of Arizona. Went to the governor's office for a little while. And moved on to the Auditor General's office for the state of Nevada. And then moved to Alaska just because we wanted to move here. And here we are, 15 years later. Internal audit, I'm going to just go through a little bit of our mission. It's to provide the Assembly and the Mayor with objective information to help ensure a degree of public accountability is maintained. Some of the things that we offer, we conduct audits, we evaluate the reliability of internal controls, we provide findings and recommendations. We provide management assistance to the administration and the assembly through special projects, and I'll be showing some of those special projects. We also provide up to 500 hours of assistance to the external auditor, that being BDO, who is here right now. So one of our staff is down with BDO doing whatever they want that person to do. We certify the proper disposal of property by the police department. That's kind of an interesting one. We certify that drugs are properly disposed of, that they obtain. We bicycles, lost and found bicycles, those types of things. Guns. We certify that the guns are properly sent to the auction company or destroyed. And other evidence that's sent to the auction company. We also do price out of labor contracts. For example, Teamsters will be coming up here shortly. We priced out the additional cost of that contract for the assembly to review. We're organizationally independent. We report both to the mayor and to the assembly. I'm appointed by the mayor with concurrence of the majority vote of the assembly. And dismissed by the mayor only for cause shown. Every year we put together an audit plan. We usually put that together at the end of the year. Around November, we'll send out a notice to the assembly and to department directors asking which audits that they would like us to conduct for the next year. We put together that plan and then submit it to the audit committee for a review and comment and endorsement. And that usually occurs in January. Our audit plan for this year, we have 10 requested audits carried over from 2016. Most of those have been completed now. In 2017, we have another 10 audits. We have 3 sunset audits this year. And those sunset audits come up on every 3 years. We have sunset audits. Sometimes we have 10, sometimes we have 3. It just depends on what the code says. And then we have routine and special studies. Here's some of our audits from last year. We did the Ombudsman, we did work orders, complete maintenance, Anchorage Equal Rights, who we just saw, the McDonald's Center, which was
It was a long taking one, wasn't it?
a long one. Hit the papers a little bit. And we did a vendor contracts over at AERC. These are the sunset audits from last year. And the sunset audits, those are more informational audits. They just present information more as, per se, an audit finding. It says what they're supposed to do and some of the things that they have done during the last 3 years. And some of our special projects, we did the AMA cost validation for the contract. We looked at phone charges at the fire department. We did a building safety survey. We launched that last year. We provided the results a couple times to the assembly. That survey is still on their website, and we'll be providing some results later on this year. Overtime analysis, so just kind of special things. Total funding level is $720,000. Of this amount, $114,000 will be reimbursed by the school district to fund one of our auditor positions. We have a total of 6 people, one of those being that ASD auditor, who spends her time and has an office over at the school district. She comes into City Hall usually once a week on Wednesdays to fill out a time card and to touch bases. I go out there periodically and work with her out there. It's turned out to be a very good relationship. I'll talk a little bit more about that. She started in 2013, supervised by the MOA, by internal audit, and ASD, we bill them every quarter for that position. I think it's one of the few examples of shared services with ASD. The reports that she produces are presented directly to the school board. We don't give those to the assembly. However, they are on our internal audit webpage. And if you just look on to the left, when you access the webpage, you'll say school district audits. She's done audits of, they call it addenda. That's kind of like overtime. She's done audits of the activities funds. Last year, she did while she was doing that audit, she came across some fraud that ended up hitting the paper over at Greening Middle School. And Chudak was several years prior to that. Okay.
There's another one occurring.
So,
Entrepreneurship in our community.
so,
Chris has a question, Mike.
Good.
Let me get Chris's
Okay.
question.
Yeah, you mentioned that you work on labor contract review, cost review. Do you do that for the assembly, for the administration, or joint?
We do that principally for the assembly.
So are there a second set of numbers that the administration generates as this is what we think, and then you kind of give us analysis that we can juxtapose, or, I'm trying to understand it.
Okay. Mr. Constant, through the chair, I'll explain that. What happens on that is that once they have negotiated the terms of the contract, that's employee relations. Employee relations then takes the model that we have and they put together what they feel is the cost of the contract. We then audit that and we look at that and we say, well, we agree, or well, I don't think this is right. The contract actually says this, and we come to an agreement on what those numbers should be. Then they take the numbers that we've agreed to, that we've audited to make sure this looks appropriate,
Right.
and they put together a C statement of economic effect, which they submit to the assembly. Then we put together our memo, which we provide to the assembly, saying here are the numbers, and the C numbers match our numbers because we worked jointly on that.
Thank you.
Anything else, Chris? Go ahead, Mike.
I think that completes the slideshow. We were allotted 15 minutes, so I wanted to make it quick and brief. If you have any questions, please.
Felix, Suzanne, Pete, any questions? Fred?
Sorry, I don't want to appear to be the only guy that asks questions.
That's right, you're the head of our audit committee. You'll be working closely with them.
And I talked with Mike. Mike, I think I asked you if you had the authority to audit non-city departments, but where money had flowed through the city to a contractor or an NGO.
Usually, Mr. Dyson, through the chair, we would work with the department who gave that money. We wouldn't work directly with the organization. Because, for example, if it was some type of a grant, we would work with the department, and we would go through the department and work with the grant recipient.
So the grant, if the department asked you to do it, then you would do it there, and you have the authority.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Chairman, when I joined the assembly, your favorite mayor, Mr. Knowles, was cutting up evidence guns and seized guns.
Yes, I stopped that from happening, Mr. Dyson.
Yeah, well, I worked on it.
I stopped it.
Yep. And I think, Mr. Peterson, you helped when we were in the legislature, but the state was selling state-owned firearms at ridiculous prices.
And they are still selling to out-of-state gun shops.
And that may be a problem, but ridiculous prices. 870 Remington that had been state troopers, $35 to $50 a piece.
I'd buy some of those.
And they claimed they were dangerous and obsolete. All they've been doing is sitting in the squad car. But I found out that since that, they are giving all the state-owned firearms to one of the firearm dealers, not an auctioneer, a dealer who supplies all their sign-ups, and still bad prices. Are you sure that they're all going to an auctioneer?
All of our city ones go to an auctioneer because I follow that religiously.
Okay, all right.
And just to clarify, Mr. Dyson, through the chair, there are some guns that are destroyed. But those guns that are destroyed, it's my understanding, and we witnessed it, they're either deemed unsafe, and a lot of times we'll find those and they're rusted, they found them, or the owner of the gun has asked that it be destroyed, and a lot of times that's because it was used in a suicide.
We also destroy NFA guns, Fred. Guns that are illegal because they're full automatic. We're not going to put those back in circulation that violates the NFA Act.
I think they ought to give the Class 3 license.
Well, I agree, but I have a conflict of interest with that.
How about seized property that doesn't go back to the victim?
It's my understanding that those that, after a certain waiting period, then those go to the auction. Well, it's advertised first.
We make about $75,000 a year, Fred, on guns that we sell.
Yeah, so I think you may have helped me also, Pete. I put in the law that when you see stuff from pimps, you seize all their equipment. And you guys saw a Cadillac Escalade that the cops owned. That was a well-known pimp here in town that owned that.
After you left the body, I passed a law allows us to seize cars from drunk drivers, and we turned a lot of those cars back into APD property. We got some very nice cars off of pimps.
Can't beat the Cadillac I got.
Any other questions?
Sorry.
Mr. Chair, Municipal Code, Chapter 725, has left detailed procedures about how to dispose of our guns, firearms, and other property seized by the police department. So it's a good place to look at how it works, how it's supposed to work. And I think APD is very familiar with applying that chapter of the code. So they would need someone to talk to very interesting. And that's
I will tell you, for instance, we share the same interest. better probably find an auctioneer that wants to do it for what we pay them. They want a higher percentage of take on the sales. And interesting, the individual that's current auctioneer came to the assembly a couple months ago and said he wanted to see all guns destroyed, no auctions. But then he actually bid on the contract. He's our auctioneer now, Mr. Ronaliva. So he personally wants to destroy him, but he's still our auctioneer. Anyway, Mike, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm done unless there's some other questions.
Any questions? Thanks for your time, Mike.
Thank you.
Good job.
That's it for today.
Thank you for being here. Don't forget, we got the police memorial at 3 o'clock. And they sent you an email that's got the address on it. Thanks for being here today.